All right, so the next buzzword that we are going to dive deep into. So how many of you have heard the term programmatic? Nobody's heard what programmatic is? Really? So programmatic is a new buzz term that has come in terms of media buying. Okay, so everyone's talking about programmatic, everyone's talking about how that is taking over our media spends and our media channels. So next up, I'm calling upon Oliver from Fiksu to take us for a little deeper into how programmatic is taking over mobile marketing. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting to you, Oliver.
Is there a clicker that I should use? Perfect. Good morning. Let me just say, it's an absolute honor to be here. This is my first time in Chennai. I've been to India on many, many occasions. The first time was when I was about 20. I spent 2 weeks in an ashram, a couple of hours north of Mumbai. But I've been back to India on several occasions subsequently. It's delightful to be here and an absolute honor to have been invited by the GMASA. Really interesting to see that there weren't many hands that went up when talking about programmatic. I predict, given the types of growth that we're seeing in India currently, that that will change. So please allow me to take you through what programmatic means. It is an absolute buzzword. There are lots of misconceptions. Given that so few people have come across this so far, hopefully you'll be starting with an advantage because you won't have the same misconceptions that many other people have. First of all, so my name's Oliver Clark. The company that I work for is called Fiksu, and let me explain a little bit about what Fiksu does. First of all, Fiksu is in fact a Finnish word. Our founder, professor of computer science from MIT, is Finnish, and Fiksu in Finnish means savvy or smart. And really that's what we do. We help advertisers to take advantage of the very complex mobile ecosystem by integrating with all of the different types of advertising channels that are available, bringing all of the data in that we gather from those, and then optimizing the performance of the campaigns that we run based upon the data that we get. So we get a lot of data, but crucially what we do is process that data in a really smart way. From what you can see on the slide behind me, I think I'll just pull out a couple of points. The keywords here are complete, so it's across the entire mobile ecosystem, social, video, real-time bidding exchanges, and so forth. Precision targeting, this comes from our ability to do smart things with data, but also the point about it being at scale. It's been delightful to hear so much optimism and confidence from many of the speakers today talking about how they feel that they are standing in the presence of many future billionaires. The real challenge in becoming that billionaire in advertising is being able to reach your target audiences at scale. That's the kind of activity that Fiksu does. If I take you through the types of clients for whom we do that, this tells a slightly different story. So there are lots of predominantly North American brands that are probably recognizable to many of you. The key thing to take away here is that last year we worked with 41 of the top 50 grossing apps in the US iTunes store. We have, over the course of our history, driven over 4 billion downloads. If we put that into context, if we just take the last 2 years, 2014 and 2013, and compare the quantity of downloads that Fiksu had been responsible for in comparison to the best forecasts that the industry has for the iOS, iTunes, and the Google Play stores, Fiksu was responsible for 1 in every 75 apps that were downloaded worldwide. Now, as a consequence of these types of clients, the data and the activity that we undertake skews naturally today towards North America. It skews naturally towards some of the largest brands, and also this takes us to many of the most valuable users, the people that have got big brands' apps on their devices. As a consequence of working with these sorts of organizations, we've acquired something in the order of 60% of all smartphone device IDs that have ever been created. So that's ever sold since 2007, the first iPhones. That equates to almost about 90% of all smartphones in the US today. So naturally, we follow the market. A lot of our activity is in North America. But what is happening in North America today, I feel very certain is going to be happening here tomorrow, if not potentially this afternoon. So these are the kind of organizations with whom we work. It's an enormous opportunity that stands before you here in India. The type of growth that we're seeing is enormous. I think even eMarketer's report here showing some of the growth and some critical inflection points. I think we can see is it in 2018 that 50% of mobile ad spend on digital is likely to be in mobile. This almost seems conservative in comparison to some of the data that I was reading in the Mary Meeker's report recently. So India's growing fast. The sorts of challenges that I'm talking about today and going through in terms of programmatic are, I believe, the kinds of challenges that you will be facing in building your businesses tomorrow. So the Association of National Advertisers, I'm sure this is an American association, coined or voted that last year's Buzzword of the Year in North America was programmatic. I'd like to take you through what that means. For most people, programmatic means something to do with real-time bidding exchanges, and the two kind of get mixed up very often. I'd like to take you through how we define this programmatic advertising activity as being in Fiksu. And crucially, if you can see here, so I'll say it out loud, we define programmatic as being an automated process to make inventory placement decisions, that is, advertising decisions, and to execute on those decisions through closed-loop feedback. Essentially what this is saying is that when you make a choice to place an advertisement in a particular area to target a particular audience, you need to be able to do that and understand what the results of that advertisement were. You take the results of that advertisement, you feed them back into future decisions about where you place new advertisements, what you say to which target audiences. It sounds relatively straightforward. The best example of the way that this works is probably illustrated below. So it's a closed cycle. The crucial element of this closed cycle is that in order to be able to do that, the right hand really does need to know what the left hand is doing. There's a lot of infrastructure that needs to go into place to be able to understand what's performing well on one side and communicating that around. So you're buying the media, you're measuring its performance, you're analyzing that performance, and then you're using that to inform new decisions. Now, the most common example of this type of activity takes place on real-time bidding exchanges. So what would typically happen is, let's say a user appears at a particular location. They suddenly turn on their app. As a result of that app coming up, they are visible to the real-time bidding exchange. That real-time bidding exchange offers the opportunity to advertisers to bid, to be able to display a particular advertisement to that particular user, and that real-time bidding exchange will provide as much data as they can about that user. They'll provide their device ID, they may provide their location, they may provide other demographic information if they possess that. They'll share that with the whole world of potential advertisers. Advertisers will bid for that, the exchange will choose a winner, and it will then display an advertisement. The crucial thing here is this is very much like machine trading, it's very much like the operation of many financial markets. This all happens in under 200 milliseconds. So very rapid, very automated, very technology dependent. Growth currently in India in real-time bidding exchanges is very high. As we can see behind me, the graph shows enormous growth. Crucially, this is not simply mobile, but also includes desktop. Critically, what it doesn't include is a source of programmatic opportunities that extend beyond real-time bidding exchanges. With the types of information that we're able to gather about our users and use in recognition of some of the comments from the panel prior to this presentation, and to use that data in a sensitive manner. Given the amount of data that you can acquire, there are other opportunities that present themselves to buy advertisements in a programmatic fashion. Those other opportunities are on social networks. The reason for this is that social networks have got a few key things that you need to have to be able to do that kind of programmatic activity. They have an enormous number of users. They have an enormous amount of data about their users. And also, they've built advertising solutions that enable companies to connect into those advertising systems, both on an ad placement as well as an ad analysis perspective, to be able to build tools to integrate with those automatically. So at Fiksu, we're able to treat these types of social networks as also being programmatic sources of inventory. Now, why is any of this particularly important? Well, as the chart behind me shows, that if you're trying to put a particular message to a particular person at a particular time, in order to optimize the results of your advertisement, you need to be really quite targeted. The challenge that most apps, brands, the agencies that represent them, games developers, the challenge that most of these companies and individuals face is their inability to engage in a conversation with their target audiences. Being able to act programmatically provides you with that opportunity because you can choose which type of message to deliver to which type of audience depending upon that audience member's position in your marketing funnel. Maybe they've downloaded your app, but they haven't accessed it for a while. Maybe they have passed a particular location that you know is close to your brand and you want to entice them or attract them to perform some action that would be of interest to you. If you try to target, the challenge you face is the richness of the data that the social networks contain. If you were to just break down into individual campaigns for each of these different segments, genders, ages, interests, geographies, and so forth, this alone would create over 10,000 different marketing audience segments. To be able to do that manually is enormously difficult. This is where programmatic has a great advantage to help marketers to be able to connect with their audiences quickly and efficiently. I'll push through here. There are various benefits that programmatic technologies provide. I'll share the slides, make the slides available for this after the event so that you can get to this. But if we look at how that has translated into the real world, this is an example of a social gambling, a casino app. What you can see on the blue line is what happens when you're targeting on very precise casino audiences. On the orange line, you can see what happens when things are untargeted. We run these kind of benchmarks to be able to illustrate the point. You can see that, first of all, in terms of the amount of spend that the advertiser was able to achieve, they could address a larger audience by making it more targeted, perversely. They were able to get 5 times as many conversions. In this instance, conversions means people who've seen the advertisement and then go on to download their app. But also, their cost per each app installation that they were paying reduced by 3.5%. So in order to be able to act efficiently, in order to be able to make the absolute most of whatever limited budgets that you have, acting in a programmatic way, being sensitive to the opportunities that exist when you start to automatically identify and track audiences brings some great advantages in terms of efficiency of your own income streams. There's another example here. It allows greater scale as well. It enables you to get to more and more users than you possibly would be able to if you ran a traditional advertising campaign. I won't go into detail in the interests of time. But this slide, I think, is quite an important one because this really illustrates the extent to which programmatic buying really looks a lot like financial trading and provides a lot of predictability for the types of, for advertisers when they're spending money. On the top line, you can see this wildly fluctuating cost per impression line. So this is the amount of money that it would cost for you to place a particular advertisement. By machine trading, you can see on the bottom line at the purple bars at the bottom, by essentially buying more advertisements when the cost per advertisement is low, so at these times, and then pulling back spend when the cost of advertising is high, you're able to maintain a stable cost per user acquired, which is much more effective and makes your business much more predictable. This type of activity is only really available and only really addressable when you're behaving, when you're buying, when you're advertising in a programmatic fashion. To show you what this type of activity looks like in real life, this slide probably is the 1,000 words that describes this entire presentation more effectively than I can do. What you can see on the right-hand side are each of these bars is a different target audience segment. Men, women, different age groups, and so forth. And you can see that when an individual is trying to make changes, it's a little bit complex. It's difficult to be able to do. However, when you move across to when you switch on the machines, essentially, and allow them to make the intelligent choices about where money is placed, they start to do so by optimizing where that spend goes. They put it to the channels that are performing best, and by performing best, that means the ones that are delivering the most installations at the lowest costs. As a result, in this instance, you can see that the costs have been reduced by about 22%. So, the points I will leave you with before I hand over to questions is that programmatic is an important way to be able to address your target audiences at scale. It is a highly overused buzzword, and it is often mistaken for being simply applicable to real-time bidding exchanges. It extends beyond that. It should really be the philosophy with which you approach most of your marketing decisions about advertising to acquire new users for your services, because it focuses on, first of all, understanding which audience you're trying to talk to and understanding how well that message has been received and then making intelligent decisions upon the results. So that brings my part of the presentation towards an end. I'm very happy to take any questions if anybody has any about this particular topic.
Well, first of all, a big round of applause for Oliver from Fiksu, who's taken us to a quick journey in programmatic world, and I think that's something that we continue to learn, and I'm sure it has a big impact in the future years, right? In terms, yeah. Thank you very much. And if there are no questions, we'll close out the session, and I'll have a quick.
Perfect.